Let me share with you about my son and about faith and the power of prayer. When my son was only 5 years old and began his first day of school as a kindergartner, he would not talk to anybody at school. This was his very first time in a formal school setting, so I never saw this behavior before. He spoke freely at home, only with the immediate family and his grandparents, but he soon became anxiety-stricken to the point of a phobia of speaking to anybody else in this entire world. This included not speaking to the cashiers, his teachers, his friends at school, his cousins, church friends, not even when he was alone on the school grounds, and not even when his friends came over for a play date at our house. He could not make any noise from his throat, and he could not overcome his phobia. My husband and I tried everything under the sun imaginable to try and help him, and we were unsuccessful too. We read books, we researched on the internet. We had a psychiatrist who prescribed anti-anxiety medications in a small dose. We made him try to talk to the cashiers. We took him to a school on weekends because we had permission to enter solely for the purpose of having him speak audibly at school when no one was around, and he still didn't talk there. We had regular play dates with certain unintimidating friends from school, and we prayed. But prayer actually was not the first thing that we tried. It was actually the last thing that we tried. The worst part was that nothing that we tried in this world could make him talk out loud. Nothing worked. The doctor diagnosed him with selective mutism, which basically means that a person chooses not to talk because of a control issue, typically associated with anxiety. The drugs were not helping him at all either, but rather making him sick to the stomach. We are opposed to drugs, but we felt his case was extreme and we needed some help. We were desperate, frustrated, angry at him and at each other, and our marriage suffered from the stress. The worst part was that the school politely threatened to kick him out because they could not test him for his reading skills. Now, this was a Christian school, so the children in his class were so kind and accepting, and I know God provided such a loving class for us. But the stress from the school created even greater stress upon all of us. My husband and I obsessed over our son's condition 24 hours a day, and I cried constantly as well. Well, the story takes an interesting turn because we supported a ministry to India, so they invited us to visit India as a missionary. Only I could take the time to go, so I went alone and wore Indian clothes and was accompanied by Indian pastors everywhere I went. I visited what they called the real India because they took me to places where no tourist ever ventured. Before this trip, I had never visited a developing country. Even when I visited Korea, my husband and I stayed at a high-end hotel in Seoul. I had no idea what to expect, and it changed my life. My husband told me, "Those people in India really pray, so I asked everybody to pray for Brent's healing." So that is what I did. Everywhere I went, people would ask me, "Sister, what can we pray for you?" And I would only ask them to pray for my son. I would spell his name out for them and explain that he cannot talk in public because he is gripped with fear. I would cry every time I spoke of my son's bondage. The fascinating part was that everybody in India would say, "This is demonic. We will pray. We promise to never stop praying for you until he is delivered from Satan." This actually shocked me at first because my husband and I had not really looked at his bondage as a spiritual attack from the devil. This really opened my eyes to the situation. I also grew up in a charismatic church, so this was not foreign to me either. But for some reason, my husband and I never saw it this way. After many days in India, I think I had hundreds of people and Bible students fervently praying for my son around the clock. I would call home, and my husband excitedly told me one day that we have had a breakthrough. Keep doing whatever you are doing. Our son suddenly agreed to have himself videotaped while reading a Bible, and the link was shared with his school teacher. Now, he would never have done this before India. We had tried unsuccessfully many times before, but it happened effortlessly when I was in India with all those people praying. Then a pastor told me that faith is thanking God for the miracle before it happens. Your son will talk, but you must believe that God can do the miracle first. This changed my attitude as well. So when I came home, I began to pray for him after he fell asleep by placing my hand on his head and thanking God for setting him free from this bondage and demonic attack. I would also lay completely prostrate on the floor next to his bed and weep and cry out to God while begging him to set our son free, because we knew that God did not want him to be in bondage to fear. This is not God's will for anybody. Soon, he began making small improvements in audible speech at school, but he was not completely free yet. I think we must have had about 500 Indian people praying for us simultaneously. The church prayed, and the elders prayed for him and laid their hands on him. My husband and I really took prayer very seriously when I returned from India. The biggest breakthrough we had was in first grade at school. I directed a class play where my son had a part. It would be the first time he would talk before almost everybody in school. He clammed up initially out of fear, but then proceeded to say all of his lines with increasing confidence for each new line. I could not believe my ears. Many mothers were tearing up as well. The incredible part was that the doctor had changed medications, and there were a few weeks lag time in which the medications are not effective. When he saw my son again, he could not believe the difference and asked, "What did you do? This is incredible. The medications are not working yet." I told him that we are devout Christians, and I went to India and had hundreds of people praying for him, and we just prayed. I told him that it was prayer. He told me that only 1 in 1,000 overcome his condition at such an early age, and some never overcome the inability to speak publicly. He agreed that this was some sort of a miracle. You see, I believe God did it this way so that no man could ever say that the medications healed him. God wanted to show me that He alone healed my son through the power of prayer alone, so that God would receive all the glory. I have proclaimed Matthew chapter 21, verses 21 and 22 with all my heart during this dark time in my son's life, and it is still one of my favorite verses in the Bible today. It says, "I tell you the truth, if you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, but also you can say to this mountain, 'Go, throw yourself into the sea,' and it will be done. If you believe, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer." Now, I am not saying that God will give me whatever selfish thing I ask for, but whatever His will is for me. I want to tell you that my entire view on faith and the power of prayer has changed because of my son. I will turn to prayer first when I'm afraid or anxious now, because I know that there is power in prayer to change the seemingly impossible. And I pray that you will too. May God receive all the glory.